Hello and welcome to the Hoop Heads Podcast. It's Mike Linsing here with my co-host Jason Sunkle tonight, freshly back from North Carolina and his trip to the PGA
I
Championship, which we'll
successfully,
talk
like
about.
Scotty Scheffler, successfully did not get arrested this year.
Good work. We'll
did you
talk more
did you see
about
the
that.
Nike? Did you see the Nike ad? Did I send that to you?
No, nope,
Oh,
nope.
it's a good one. Hold on. I'm gonna pull it up real quick. But it says something along the lines of, uh, um, "The verdict is in. Scotty Scheffler is guilty of being the number one player in the world," or something. Nike is just on it, man. They
All
are
right,
just
there we
so
go.
good. It says best. Oh, here's was their tweet was the verdict is in. World number one Sky Scheffler is the PGA champion, and then the picture is him swinging a golf club, and it says best player in the world question mark guilty. I thought that was so clever, so
Nice. There you
so
go.
clever.
Kudos to Nike.
Dude, Nike
At any
just
rate,
Nike's the best. Is there a better brand at like taking things and spinning negative things into a positive? I think Nike's so good at like taking real world things and making it, and I just think they're the best. I don't think it's any. I don't
probably,
think.
pro- probably true. All right, let's move on to the NBA. We witnessed a horrendous Game 7 yesterday between Oklahoma City
I didn't
and
witness it. I was
Denver.
driving home from the PGA.
I got to witness it, unfortunately. It
Well, the
was not
first,
pretty.
real quick, Mike. Okay, so maybe we're changing this. Let's go Western Conference first, since that game happened most recently. Okay,
All right, sounds good.
the first quarter was competitive, right?
Denver was up 18 to 8. It looked
But
like, honestly, at the start of the game, it looked like Oklahoma City was a little nervous, and it looked like Denver's veteran guile was maybe going to
well,
be enough to at least
and
keep them into the game and get it down to be a close
and
game. And
Aaron
that
Gordon
turned
was
out to
he
be
was playing with a hamstring pull. Like, listen, I give that guy a lot of credit, man. He listen, we got guys who can't play through a toe problem, and we got Aaron Gordon out there busting his butt. I mean, he was clearly hampered, and the first quarter he played all right, and then after that it was terrible, right, Mike?
in the first quarter. Look, you could tell, as you said, that he clearly could not move and explode in any real way. And so as you watched him, you're like, there's a guy who's playing at three-quarter speed, trying not to extend himself. And yet he definitely was a factor in the first quarter. And then really, I mean, once you got beyond the 3-minute mark, well, 3 minutes left in the second half, in the first half, in the second quarter, it just completely unraveled for Denver. They just couldn't get anything. And I mean, we can get into the specifics of what and why, but Oklahoma City's defense, which has been the best side of the ball for any team in the league this whole season, clearly exerted itself against Denver. When you watch that game, it was kind of amazing looking back over the course of the series that Denver, with the unit that they had, and now granted, Aaron Gordon was only hurt in Game 7, and he was probably the Nuggets' second best player throughout the series. But it still was kind of amazing that Denver was even able to get 3 games off of Oklahoma City with just as smothering as their defense was. And of course, the wrinkle that Oklahoma City threw at Denver in Game 7 was having Alex Caruso guard Jokic. And part of you, as you're watching that game, I'm saying to myself, how can Caruso be guarding Jokic? Just put him down on the block and let him turn and muscle his way through Alex Caruso. But when you go back and you look at it more closely, Caruso is basically banging him, slapping him, just every bit of physical contact that you could possibly have. And
Yeah,
clearly, Jokic outweighs him by what, 75 or 100 pounds. And the officials just aren't going to give the same. They're not going to give the same power to a guy who would be closer to Jokic's size in terms of Caruso just was given the ability to foul at will. You couldn't call every single foul that Caruso was
I
putting
saw
on
I saw
Jokic,
someone
especially.
I saw someone's like some people were tweeting like obviously I was so when the game started I was golfing with my dad and we were not driving back and then we started to drive back and I was kind of keeping an eye on it but I saw some tweets about like pictures of like Kevin Nash and like NWO Hulk Hogan like beating each other with chairs and like this is Alex Caruso could do this and they wouldn't call it.
There was a lot of physicality, especially before Jokic got the ball. So Caruso's banging on and pushing him. In a lot of cases, he was fronting him. But then the other problem that the Nuggets faced was, yeah, you could try to get the ball to Jokic. Well, I guess they faced one problem if Russ had the ball, that he had no idea
Well,
how to throw an entry
Russ's
pass.
stat line was terrible.
Russ probably chucked 3 passes in that game that were nowhere near Jokic's target hand as he was posting up. I mean, it was ridiculous. But anyway, the problem for the Nuggets is that basically Jokic was not only surrounded before he got the ball and after he got the ball, but guys were just swiping down at him every which way he turned. And he's just throwing it to guys who are either injured, can't shoot, or
I saw a lot of
ridiculously
memes of
bad
Jamal Murray.
throw-up
I'm not going to
Murray's
comment
not
on
good.
those memes, but
I don't know that Murray. Look, they needed, in order for them to be able to compete in Game 7, they needed playoff Jamal Murray, or at least far above average Jamal Murray, and they got a below average Jamal Murray game. Now, over the course of the series, I don't know that Jamal Murray would be my number one reason why the Nuggets lost this series. I think you have to point to just one, the lack of depth that they had, and the lack of three-point shooting. Michael Porter Jr., I think he had 7 points maybe in this game and just was completely ineffective.
Mike,
Now, he's been a player.
anytime Michael Porter, anytime I obviously I already said I did not watch any of this game, but anytime I saw Michael Porter catch the ball, you know how we always talk about how Kevin Durant's going to shoot the ball, we think it's going in. Every single time Michael Porter Jr. shot the ball, I thought the exact opposite. There's no way in heck that ball's going in the hoop.
Here's the thing, though. Like, Michael Porter Jr. was hurt, right? I mean, his shoulder, we're going to find out at some point here that he's got a pretty serious shoulder injury, and you can knock him for not shooting the ball well, which he didn't. But still, as we go back as Cavs fans and think about this guy just gutting it out and trying to play, right? He's trying to play through what I'm guessing is going to be a fairly serious shoulder injury. We're going to eventually find out. And look, Michael Porter Jr. was not good in this series. I think he had one good game out of 7, which is not really the ratio that you're looking for if you're the Denver Nuggets.
No.
But the thing is that when you look at this Nuggets roster, really, other than Jamal Murray and Jokic, Michael Porter Jr. is the only guy who really has been, over the course of his career, a consistent three-point shooter. Now, Christian Braun, everybody made a big deal throughout the series that Christian Braun's playing really well. But I think I saw that he shot 13 for 49 from 3 in this series, which not good, right? That's
31%.
Somewhere. I mean, it's low. Let's put it that way. You're a math guy more than
me. Well,
13
out of
it's low, right? So it's 13 out of 49 would be
13 out of 49. Oh yeah, that's like I thought you said 30. That's pretty bad. It's
around 20. That's around 25%, maybe 26, 27. Anyway, it's bad. Let's put it that way. It's very bad.
Yeah.
So there just was nowhere for the Nuggets to go for offense. And Jokic, like I said, before he touched the ball, he was surrounded. When he touched the ball, he was surrounded. And anytime he tried to get the ball to someone else, chances are they were going to miss or do something that wasn't going to be productive for the Denver Nuggets. So you can look at Jokic, and I think he averaged for the series 28, 14, and 6, which for any normal player, you're like, oh my God, that guy, that's probably the best he's ever played in the playoffs. For Jokic, that was a below average series. He didn't shoot the ball as well as he normally does. He had a lot more turnovers than he normally does. And Oklahoma City. And
he's just slowly looking forward to those beers, Mike. He's really looking for those beers.
He might be. Denver just got overwhelmed from that 3-minute mark of the second quarter on into the third quarter. They just could not do anything. And I will say that the officiating, the way that game was officiated, had a huge role to play in the outcome. That's
it's game 1 of the Pacers Cavs series. They didn't officiate the game, the physicality in that game. Like, and it was obviously more glaring. I based on what I'm hearing, it's more glaring, but it's the same thing. I mean, the Hunter foul, I still go back to that. I don't really want to turn this into a Cavs discussion, But how Kenny Atkinson can challenge that call, and Hunter's literally shoved, dislodged, displaced, and they didn't call it, and they didn't overturn it. It's the same kind of situation. It changed the outcome. Now that game was a closer game than this one. This game was over. I saw at halftime they were they had Nuggets or the Thunder had gone on a huge run, and I was like, whoa, this baby's over. And then I saw it was 27 after three, and I'm like, yeah, it's definitely over. But like, I don't know. I just think there has to be some common sense with the officiating, Mike. And I don't want to turn this into the officials cost Denver the game because I still think Oklahoma City's probably the better team. But the bottom line is this: like, they have to get more consistent. And like, I understand that you want to allow them to play physical in the playoffs, but what there's a difference between physical and I don't want to say unsafe, but physicality and player safety. We've been hearing, especially lately, after everything they've been talking about with like all all these players have rested and they're still getting hurt, yada yada yada. Like, well, that's because they're letting them play the way that they're playing. Like, once again, Tatum's injury was a non-contact injury. Hunter's injury was preventable in the Cavs series. Okay, Gordon's injury was kind of a freak one, right? It wasn't anything that happened. Okay. But I'm just saying, like, they were talking about all about this play, it's like the same thing with the NFL, the player safety nonsense in the NFL. Like, if you're going to talk about things need to be safe for the players, and we want to get them to, you want the best players playing. We don't want like Anthony Edwards to go out in the first quarter of this next series. We don't want that to happen. I mean, because then that series will be over, and we'll get there in a second. Talk about what's going to happen. We don't want in the East. We don't want Tyrese Halliburton to get hurt. We don't want Brunson to get hurt. But if the refs don't start calling things more consistently, then and players can get away with things, then they're going to push the boundaries. This is the playoffs. They're trying to win. But they gotta get more consistent. That's really that ran about, Mike. They have to be more consistent because what's a foul in one game, should be a foul in the other. And it's kind of the same thing. Like when you think about a baseball game or a football game, like a baseball game, the strike zone varies from game to game, but you have the general rules of a baseball game. Are the ball goes down the middle of the plate, it's a strike. The ball doesn't, and maybe a umpire calls something wrong, but it's consistent. The NFL, majority of things are called consistently. Holding, we can discuss about Myles Garrett getting held all the time and things like that. It's somewhat subjective, but the rules are consistent. Like in basketball, I know it's hard to ref these guys in physicality, but there's got to be a line drawn. They have to do something about it. I don't know what it is, and it's a joke that every single year the same refs are in the finals, in the playoffs, in the Eastern Conference, and like every single time I see Scott Foster, I'm like, oh boy, it's gonna be interesting. Every single time I see Tony Brothers, I'm gonna be like, oh boy, there's gonna be some missed calls in this game. Okay, I'm just saying they need to get more consistent. I apologize for my rant.
So here's what I would say to that. One, I agree with you that consistency across the board is and should be the goal so that you're going into a game as a team, as a player, as a coach, understanding how the game is going to be called. And look, as you said, the game of basketball is extremely difficult to officiate. There's a lot of subjectivity. There's a lot of, hey, we can let this go. We cannot let this go. I do think that in the case of this game with Oklahoma City and Denver, the way that the game was officiated did not determine the outcome. I don't think Oklahoma City won because the referees allowed them to play more physical. But I do think that had the game been called tighter and been played in a less physical manner because of the officiating, I think that would swing the advantage to Denver. Teams still have to play, and Oklahoma City clearly outplayed Denver, and I don't think the officiating would have made any difference in a game that at one point the Thunder were up by 40 points. But I think you look at the bigger picture, and yes, you want there to be consistency. This is a discussion that if you go back 15 or 20 years, there was a lot of discussion around the physicality of the playoffs versus what was allowed to go on in the regular season. I feel like that discussion has kind of fallen away
Oh, it
in the
hasn't. It
last
hasn't. You
in the
don't watch.
last in
You don't watch NBA games with Dave Sunkel.
I'm saying in the last but I'm saying in the last few years as a national story, that
Oh yeah,
narrative has sort of gone away. And this
I
year,
agree in the national realm, but in the Jason Sunkel realm, it hasn't because my dad says it every single time because he's
okay,
thinking he has nostalgia for 20 years ago. It's like, oh my gosh, Dad, I hear you say the same thing over and over again about.
I understand.
Yeah.
Look, the bottom line is Denver was not good enough. Jokic probably had to have a transcendent series and a transcendent game seven in order to give them a chance, especially when Gordon goes down with the hamstring injury prior to game seven. But you look at the totality of their roster and they just don't have enough. They don't have enough shooting. They don't have enough defenders. You were depending way too much on Russell Westbrook, who was good in that Clippers series and was horrendous in this series. And as a result of that, it's just there was nowhere for Jokic to turn. Normally, what you want to do, right, if you're him, is he prefers to be able to draw the defense, kick, help his guys to score, and they just couldn't get enough shots. If Julian Strother doesn't go off for whatever 15 points in game five, no, game six, sorry, in game six, they probably don't even get to game seven. And then you go back and you look at game one where the Thunder fouled up three and made some silly tactical decisions. That's a game that probably Oklahoma City should have won. Denver, in lots of ways, it was miraculous that they were able to even push the thing to a game seven. And like I said, when you started out watching that game through the first, I don't know what it was, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, when it was 18-8, and it looked like Denver had some early control. They had gotten the crowd quieted down, and Oklahoma City looked a little bit tight, missed some shots that you might expect them normally to make. You thought, well, maybe Denver can just kind of keep it at this
Hang in
point,
there.
keep a lead, keep the crowd out of the game, and get it down to the last 4 minutes or 8 minutes or whatever in the fourth quarter. And Jokic can kind of take control and get them good shots on every possession. And all of a sudden, Oklahoma City's a little bit tight playing at home and being the favorite and all that stuff. And Oklahoma City just took that and completely just annihilated it with incredible defensive pressure. And look, could there have been some fouls called on Caruso? Sure. Could there have been some fouls called elsewhere in that game when guys are pressuring the ball or being physical away from the ball? I
Yeah.
think so. But the reality is that Oklahoma City's defense has been tough as nails all season long. And they've caused more turnovers than any other team. They were number one in turnovers forced throughout the entire season. And that's what they did in game seven. They stuck to their identity. They came through in a way that was not surprising when you look at the trends over the course of the entire season. And their defense was just suffocating. And Denver did not have the right personnel or the right healthy personnel to be able to do anything with it. And so now, if you're Denver, you look around and you got Jamal Murray, whose extension, 208 million, kicks in, I think, next year.
Yeah. Yeah.
He, he, you've got Michael Porter Jr. I think he still has 2 more years on his max extension. And then you've got Jokic. So you've got three max players where really only one guy did you get max player performance out of. Michael Porter Jr. has never come close to being max player production. Now, he was very good in their title run. Don't get me wrong. He played very, very well. That was peak Michael Porter Jr. But even that version of him doesn't approach what you would hope to be a guy who signed for a max salary. And then Jamal Murray had his moments in these playoffs, but was nowhere near what he was during their title run. And who knows, is that guy completely gone as far as being able to be consistent? Clearly, in his career, having never been an all-star despite his playoff resume, tells you that Jamal Murray is not necessarily a guy who is consistent for 82 games. In any one game, in any one season, in any one stretch of games, I don't know that you can be too certain if you're Denver what you're getting from Jamal Murray. And I don't know where they go, what they do. They don't have a lot of draft equity. I think they have maybe their own 27 and 29 picks, if I remember reading that, but they don't have a lot. Like nobody who's trading for Jamal Murray with 4 years and 208 million left on his contract. Who's trading for 2 years of Michael Porter at 38 and $40 million? I don't think that there's too many suitors out there. And beyond that, I don't know how you acquire talent or change what you have around Jokic. I think if you're Denver, you can ask yourself, are we close? Because we lost a game 7 to the team that is probably the prohibitive favorite at this point to win the title? Or do you say, man, we were lucky to win 3 games in that series, and now we've lost twice in the second round over the last 2 years since we won the title? I don't know what direction they go,
Well,
but
I
it'll
I
be
I'll,
interesting.
I
All
saw
these
so
teams, all these teams that lost in the second round, all these teams that lost in the second round, Cavs included, the Warriors, and who am I forgetting? The
Celtics
Celtics, right? All 4 of those teams
have
have
decisions.
very interesting off seasons in terms of how they're going to either rework their team, try to just run it back and think, we just had bad luck run into us in the playoffs. There's a lot of decisions to be made there.
Yeah, I saw someone put a suggestion that because Jokic wants to drink some beers, that they should send him to the Lakers.
I don't think Jokic is going to end up on the Lakers, but we
No,
didn't think Luka was going to end up on the Lakers either.
that's
So
true.
I
So,
have no idea.
anyways, so I guess where we go from here, Mike, is uh, the Western Conference Finals. We now have Minnesota versus Oklahoma City, and man, it's setting up. It should be a good series. I don't. Obviously, these were not the 4 teams that we thought were going to be in the final, Western Conference and Eastern Conference Finals. I don't think if we would have told us to pick one of these, pick the teams, I don't know that like any kind of combination anyone would have picked the 4 teams that are left. But here's what I'm going to say: Oklahoma City is fun and exciting to watch. Anthony Edwards is fun and exciting to watch. The Timberwolves can be fun and exciting to watch. Randall's played pretty well this playoffs run. Rudy Gobert is Rudy Gobert. You never know what you're going to get. He might have a game where he has 6 blocks. He might have a game that he does terrible at. He might do some good Shaqtin' a fool situations. I don't know. There's lots of interesting things. Mike, let me throw this out there. Can I interest you in a Minnesota Timberwolves New York Knicks NBA Finals? I think I threw this out 2 weeks ago. Come on. This would be the greatest tarnishment of our podcast we've ever had in our lives. If that happens, Mike, you realize that, right? Because when the trade happens, we said neither of these teams are better. It would be pretty ironic if they are the 2 teams in the NBA Finals.
It would. And I will say that I don't. Okay, let me say it this way. We're talking about the Western Conference right now. Julius Randle has clearly been a driving force in what has put Minnesota into the Western Conference Finals. Without Julius Randle and what he's been able to do in these first 2 rounds of the playoffs, both as a bully ball scorer and as a passer, and even to some extent as
Defense.
a defensive player,
Yeah.
I think that he has been a revelation. I think what we're seeing in these first 2 rounds is the best version of
Theoretical
Julius
Julius
Randle.
Randle.
Theoretical Julius Randle. Now, don't forget, Julius Randle made, I believe, he made 2 All NBA teams while he was
Well,
in New
he
York.
was great until he got hurt, right? He was great.
I think he made 1 second team and 1 third team. And so we're not talking about a guy who is bereft of talent or that was not productive as a New York
Yeah.
Knick. We're talking about a guy who in the playoffs was not effective. And we have seen, right, over the course of the time that we've been doing the podcast, we have seen players who are more effective regular season players than playoff players. And Julius Randle has clearly fit into that category, a guy who is very productive in the regular season, but come playoff time, because of whether it's the matchups, whether it's because of his style of play, it just has not translated for Randle up until this season. And this year started with the Lakers, where he kind of was able to, if he ever got matched up with Luka or LeBron or Hachimura, whoever tried to guard Randall physically, he just overpowered whoever the Lakers were able to throw at him. And I think that got him started. And then he's just continued to play really well. Now, Golden State, look, he overpowered Draymond. So much for Draymond's Player of the Year candidacy, because Randall just completely chewed him up and spit him out in that series. So I would say that Randall has been a driving force in Minnesota's march to the Western Conference Finals. On the other hand, I would say Karl Towns has been a worse player in the playoffs than he was during the regular season. And when you watch Karl Anthony Towns play in the playoffs, I would say that he's been, I don't know, maybe the fifth most important. I might even drop.
I think he's going to be. He's going to be the key for the Knicks to compete. And I don't want to get into the East Conference, but I think because if he's got to get back on defense and the way the Indiana plays, that's going to be interesting to see. Can he get back on defense? But let's
leave that. So Randall, I think I look at him as being very important to me. I think one of the keys to this series, when I think about the Minnesota Timberwolves over the last 2 years, I think about their offense and whether or not their offense can handle pressure and can execute in big moments. And then conversely, when I think about what we've seen from Oklahoma City, both this entire season and in the playoffs, Oklahoma City's ability to force teams to do things that they don't want to do and to get teams to turn the ball over, to me, those two things make me worried for Minnesota. In other words, if Minnesota is going to win this series, I really believe that they're going to have to limit their turnovers, execute well on offense, and get shots. Because when you look at Minnesota's size, they're huge in every single spot except for when Mike Conley's on the floor. If Conley's not on the floor, then you're going to have 5 guys who are at least average to bigger than average on the floor at any one time, right?
Would you consider Dante DiVincenzo bigger?
Well, if he's your fifth guy, right? If he's your smallest guy, DiVincenzo's like 6'4", 6'5". If he's your smallest guy, right? If you have DiVincenzo, Jaden McDaniels, Randall, Gobert, and Anthony Edwards on the team, or you have Nickeil Alexander-Walker, or you have Naz Reid, or whatever combination.
Okay, you're right. Valid.
Conley's the only guy who's small, I guess is my point. DiVincenzo, no, he's not like some huge, gigantic athlete with a huge wingspan and all these kinds of things that maybe some of these other guys are. But Dante DiVincenzo is not a small guy that teams can hunt. Conley's the only guy who really fits that. So when I look at it, I say, can Minnesota get a shot on every possession? And if they can get a shot on every possession, then does their size give them an opportunity to crash the offensive boards, generate extra possessions through that? Obviously, you can't do that if you're turning the ball over. And I think, to me, when I look at the one key to this series, I think that the ability for Minnesota to handle the ball and not turn it over against Oklahoma City's defense is going to be really, really critical in this series. That's the first thing I'm looking for.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I want Minnesota to win the series. Okay, that's who I want to win. I just don't see how they do it. I just think Oklahoma City is going to be firing on all cylinders. And I feel like it's this is their year. I just watch them play, and we can call SGA a foul mercenary or whatever he's doing, and like James Harden used to do all the time, and flopping around and being a little bit ridiculous. But I just don't. He's the leader, okay, but the rest of the team is just so good, offensively and defensively. You know, I go back to what we said last week and the week before. I felt like the winner of the Oklahoma City Denver series was probably going to win the title. I just felt like that was how I feel. I haven't changed my stance on that. The Thunder were able to stop and really, really, really shut down who I believe is the MVP and should have gotten the MVP this year, and limit him to, you know, a good series, but not a Jokic series. I just don't know, you know, what what the Minnesota Timberwolves can do. I think they might have some potential for some big lineup situations, like that could somewhat throw a wrench in Oklahoma City. But I feel like could Gobert, Gobert, Anthony Edwards, Naz Reid all on the floor at the same time, and maybe like muck it up a little bit in the middle. Like theoretically, maybe I don't know. I just think my personal opinion is the Thunder are going to be. I think this is a gentleman's sweep. I think Minnesota gets one game. I think this is a 5-game series. I want Minnesota to win. I'm rooting for Minnesota. Okay. I really want Minnesota to win because I think it would be really exciting for Minnesota. I like Anthony Edwards a lot, and I like Anthony Edwards more than SGA as a player. I like to watch him play more because I think the passion he plays with, the excitement he brings to the floor, I just appreciate that way more than how SGA plays. It's my personal opinion. But I just don't see how it happens. I think this is a 5-game series. I just don't think they have matched up well. And you know, yeah, that's where I'm at, Mike.
So I think when you look at the series, right, beyond what I said in terms of Oklahoma City's defense against Minnesota's ability to execute on offense, I think then if you look at the two stars, Anthony Edwards has to match SGA in terms of scoring and in terms of efficiency. Obviously, Edwards' ability to shoot the three that exploded this year, he's going to have a really good series from the 3-point line in order for Minnesota to compete. If he doesn't, then Minnesota's going to have a real hard time generating enough offense against Oklahoma City's defense. So I think that's one that Edwards has to be able to match SGA. And then two, if you look at the SGA side of it, right, I think that the good thing for Minnesota is they have multiple defenders that they can throw on SGA so they can have a fresh body on him all the time. I think Jaden McDaniels is probably going to be on him the most, if I had to guess. And then I'm guessing that Edwards probably is going to get him a little bit. Nickeil Alexander-Walker will probably get him a little bit when he comes off the bench. So they've got 3 pretty good options to be able to throw at SGA. I still think, even after watching this series against Denver, and granted, Jalen Williams had a really, really good game 7, but he kind of got himself going with steals and layups, which don't necessarily show themselves in every situation. When it came to his jumper, I still feel like he was a little shaky. I felt like Chet throughout this series was a little bit shaky. And so I think the key, and it was kind of proven out in the Denver series, that when the games were close in the last 4 minutes, that Oklahoma City could be had. If you're going to play a game where it's going to be a blowout, chances are it's going to be a blowout because Oklahoma City's defense just kind of overwhelmed your offense. But if you can get the game into the late stages of the fourth quarter, that gives you a chance. Now, conversely, Minnesota historically hasn't been that great of a team in executing down the last 4 minutes of clutch games. So, but I think that's the formula, is they have to get
Yeah.
games into the last 4 minutes. SGA and Anthony Edwards has to play him to a standstill. And I think they have to get shots up, and then they have to pound the offensive glass and just get themselves more opportunities, because I'm guessing they're going to turn it over more than Oklahoma City. And if they lose the possession battle, if Oklahoma City comes out of any game and it gets more shot attempts than Minnesota, I'm betting that Oklahoma City's probably going to win that game. I think the possession game is going to be huge. And Oklahoma City will try to generate more possessions through primarily turnovers. And I think Minnesota has to try to generate extra possessions by really pounding the offensive glass. And to me, the path for Oklahoma City to win this series is clearer and easier. And because we've seen them do it all year, the path for them to win is to continue to play smothering defense, for SGA to be great, and for their role players, for lack of a better way of saying it, but basically they're other guys. They have so many different options of guys who can have big nights that I think that the path for them to win is more clear because we've seen them do it. I think the path for Minnesota to win is maybe a little bit murkier because we're asking for Julius Randle to continue on his run of what he's done in these first two series, which is it possible? Sure. But there's a track record there that says maybe against a certain opponent that maybe he reverts to a Julius Randle that's slightly less effective. Anthony Edwards, obviously last year at this point, we were talking about him as, is he about ready to lead the Minnesota Timberwolves potentially to an NBA title? And is he jumping up the pantheon of all-time greats at age 23? Nobody's really talking about him in the same way, but is that feasible? Is it possible that Edwards outplays SGA in this series? It's certainly possible. I don't expect it necessarily, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. So that's the path for me, is that Edwards has to play SGA at least to a standstill. Minnesota can't turn the ball over. Minnesota has to win the possession battle by pounding the offensive boards. And if they can do that and make the other guys on Oklahoma City have to score enough to be able to outscore Minnesota, then the Timberwolves have a chance. But that's a lot of ifs. I think there's a lot more ifs on the Minnesota side because I think that Oklahoma City is going to bring defense. They're going to bring the creation of turnovers. They're going to bring the physical play on that end of it because they've done it all year. They've done it through 2 playoff series. And I just think that defense is something that it doesn't come and go in the same way that offense comes and goes. So we'll see. I think Minnesota can hang with them. I think Oklahoma City is going to win the series. Is Minnesota as good as Denver? I don't know. They're different. They're different kinds of teams. I'm going to give Minnesota a little credit here. I'm going to go Oklahoma City, but I'm going to say in 7. I think it's going to be a more competitive series than what you think it's going to be. So I'll go OKC in 7.
Oh my God. There's no way.
All right.
7 games is never happening.
Holding out hope that Anthony Edwards can have a huge series.
Never happened.
So,
all right.
We'll see.
The Eastern Conference. Listen, the WWE had the script, Mike. Did you see this? No. Last year, it's at one of the events, Jalen Brunson and Tyrese Halliburton got involved in a wrestling match. You didn't see any of this?
No.
Like they didn't actually fight, but they were like at a thing, and Brunson brought a steel chair in and almost hit Tyrese Halliburton with it for the WWE. Come on, baby, let's go. WWE had the script. I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you after this. But listen, we when we podcasted last week, we knew the Knicks were going to win this series. The Tatum injury was devastating. They didn't have any there's no way. Now I have to say I was not a firm believer that Boston Celtics would get a win. They came out and they played hard. They used basically everything they had left because the game at MSG was basically a huge party for the Knicks. I mean, so I give the Celtics credit. They didn't just lie down and die. Give them credit for that. They fought through it. And that happened. And the Celtics, that'll probably be a conversation that we'll have over the summer. Like, what are the Celtics going to do? But the Knicks ends up winning the series. Brunson is just been fantastic. Like, if Mike, if you had to pick a postseason MVP right now, would it be Brunson?
It has to be. Yeah, there's no
question. It has to be, right? It has to be. Okay. And I think Halliburton's close second, probably. I mean, maybe in the Eastern Conference, at least, he's second. He's second, right? Eastern Conference, he's second.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I would agree.
And Mitchell probably, if he would have, win the series, he would be there too. So, like, once again, but just fantastic for the Knicks. I'm not really happy for the Knicks. I don't like the Knicks. Um, I I don't really like the Pacers. I know we talked about this last week. You said you would root for the Knicks. I don't know. I think I have. I feel like I have to root for the Pacers. I don't know why, but Mike's like, no way, I can't.
I'm gonna root for the Knicks.
So wait,
I
you're gonna
think
root? You're rooting
I
for? Are
think I'm
you
gonna
rooting for Minnesota or Oklahoma City?
Minnesota.
Okay, so you're rooting for our podcast to be tarnished by what we
It's all
said
right.
to be.
I'll be good. I'll be good with that. Look, we've been wrong many times, just as everybody else has. You want to pull
Hey,
out
no, the
any?
Lakers won the championship a few years ago, didn't they? Anyways,
You've been stumping for the Lakers for the last 5 years, so
no,
you
I did
can't
not pick
be.
them this year, Mike. I did not pick them, and I did not pick them
All right.
last year. It was 3 years ago.
All right. Well, there you go. Anyway,
And it was no.
uh,
Well, here's what I'm gonna say. Here's what I'm gonna say. I feel like the bottom line is this: can New York keep up with the pace of Indiana? Can Indiana keep using their depth to push New York? New York and Indiana couldn't be more polar opposite when it comes to using their players. Indiana plays 9, 10, 11 guys. New York plays 5, pretty much. Like can Bridges continue to play as well as he played on both ends of the floor? Can Brunson continue to just tear? I think the answer to the Brunson question is Brunson's going to get his, okay? Because no one, I mean, will Indiana press the whole time? Like, I think the answer to that question is yes. It worked. It. I have a theory, Mike. I'm going to run this theory by you. They were running that press to practice for New York. They knew they felt like they were going to win that series against the Cavs, and now they're set up for this. Now, once again, the Celtics, or maybe they're running this. I don't think the Pacers were at all afraid of the Cavs whatsoever. I think they were not afraid. They had shown they were not afraid in the regular season. You and I thought for sure the Cavs were going to win. Obviously, we were very wrong. So was everyone on ESPN. So was all the national pundits. Okay, but the Pacers, they started this and it changed. It was their like little wrinkle. They are definitely pressing. They're going to be up on Brunson every single time. They're going to try to not get Brunson the ball. Okay, not let him bring the ball up the court. Brunson's going to get his though. Bottom line, but they're going to make him work. They're going to make him tired. They're going to make him work. Karl-Anthony Towns. Can Karl-Anthony Towns like get back on defense when their Pacers are pushing the ball? Because I think you and I both would think the answer to that question is no. That he's going to struggle at times in this series defensively just because of Pacers' pace of play. Okay, I think those are the big things. I don't know where I fall as far as who I think is going to win this series. I think this is a 7-game series, Mike. I think this is 6 or 7. This is not a sweep. This is not a gentleman's sweep. This is probably a 6 or a 7-game series. I'll hear you make your points, and then I'll make a decision based on your points. So you influence me, Mike. Convince me.
well, first of all, you hit on I think the most important points that if I'm looking to analyze this series that I think are going to be critical. One, I do think that Indiana is going to pick up Jalen Brunson full court as much as they possibly can and just try to wear him down. I think they went into the Cavs series the same way. Obviously, no one knew what the availability of Darius Garland was going to be for sure as we went into that series. But clearly, once Garland was unavailable, I think that Indiana clearly felt we can wear out Donovan Mitchell. Ty Jerome is a guy who can be pressured because he's not the most athletic, quick guy. Yeah, he has craft and he can bring the ball up the floor, but when he's being pressured by a superior athlete, as it was showed in that series, he struggled to get the ball up the floor. And I think when you look at the New York Knicks roster, if Jalen Brunson has to fight for 44 minutes bringing the ball up the floor against pressure, where Indiana could just throw multiple guys at him, right? You could throw Nemhard, you could throw Neesmith, you could throw Matherin, you could throw McConnell. There's just they can constantly keep someone right on his hip as he's bringing the ball up the floor. And then you look at the rest of the Knicks roster and you're like, okay, of the other four guys, which of those four guys would you want bringing the ball up the floor against pressure? And I'm not sure the answer, in all honesty, is any of those guys. I don't think are tremendous full court ball handlers with pressure on them. So I think Indiana is going to bring that pressure, and how New York handles that, both handles it in the moment, meaning that can they bring the ball up the floor without turning it over, but also how they handle that over the course of a game, having Brunson get worn out, and over the course of a series, having their players get worn out. As you said, Indiana has an advantage on the bench in terms of just the number of guys they play compared to the Knicks, the number of minutes that the Knicks play. We can go back and forth, right, on this argument where there are times where you say, well, seems like the depth works and they're playing more guys. Then you can go with the other idea where we used to complain about Coach Bud, and in some ways we complained about Kenny Atkinson playing too many guys. Why aren't our starters playing 44 minutes? So you can look at it both ways. I don't know which way this series is going to go, but I do know that when the series is over, the narrative is either going to be, well, the Pacers weren't able to wear down the Knicks, despite the fact that those guys were playing a lot of minutes, or it's going to be the old refrain of Tibbs plays his guys too many minutes and they broke down and Indiana's superior depth got them the win. So I don't know which way it's going to go. I do know that Indiana is going to try to wear down the Knicks, both Jalen Brunson and anybody else who tries to bring the ball up the floor. And to me, that's going to be a big key is, can Brunson fight through that? Can he continue? Look, we know he's going to be productive. The question is, how productive can he be if they're wearing him down? Donovan Mitchell was productive until he wasn't. And he kind of lost his legs and didn't shoot the ball well from three throughout that entire series. And look, Brunson's going to get his points, as you said. The question is he going to be able to do it efficiently if Indiana is hounding him for 94 feet for 5, 6, 7 games, however long this series goes? So I think that is really important. And then conversely, you look at Indiana, when they have the ball, they're going to continue to push the pace like they did against the Cavs. And I think when I look at that end of the floor, can Karl Anthony Towns stay attached defensively, stay engaged defensively, or can Indiana just continually put him into action and generate? Look, if Miles Turner shoots the ball as well as he did against the Cavs, the Knicks are going to be in a little bit of trouble with Towns trying to chase Miles Turner around if Turner's going to shoot the ball that way. Now, there's no guarantee that he will, but if he does, that's going to be a bad sign for the New York Knicks. So I think the pace of play that Indiana is going to force New York into, in terms of getting back on defense and being prepared early in the shot clock to get back and get matched up and whatever else that may happen in those first 8 seconds, I think that's going to be a big key is, can New York force Indiana to slow their pace, which, as we know, oftentimes happens in the playoffs. The Cavs were really never able to slow Indiana down. So it'll be interesting to see if the Knicks can slow people down. I will say that the Knicks have, in this last playoff series against the Celtics, Mitchell Robinson has proved himself to be a guy that can be on the floor and can have an impact. And then Deuce McBride has been good off the Knicks bench as well. So they really have 7 guys that they can play. Now, still, Tibbs is going to play those starters, barring foul trouble. All those guys are going to play right around 40 to 44 minutes. But if Mitchell Robinson and Deuce McBride can come in and play as effectively against the Pacers as they did against the Celtics, that's going to be a huge advantage for the Knicks. So this is an interesting series because obviously the Pacers want to get up and down. The Knicks prefer to play half-court offense and rely on Brunson to basically generate everything. And after having watched Indiana for 5 games sort of dismantle the Cavs, and as good as Donovan Mitchell was, he did get worn down. And when other guys weren't able to step up in certain moments, that really cost the Cavs. And I think the Knicks are going to kind of be in that same position where Brunson's going to have a good series. He's going to score. The question is, can he be efficient? And then what can those other guys do offensively? Bridges had a good series against Boston. Anunoby did not have a very good series offensively. Towns has not been nearly as good in the playoffs as he was in the regular season. He's only shooting, I pulled up his stats here as we were talking, but he averaged 24 a game in this regular season. He's only averaging 19.8 in the playoffs. And he shot 42% from three in the regular season. He's shooting 34% from three in the playoffs. So he hasn't been nearly as effective of a playoff performer as he was in the regular season for the Knicks. And like I said, I don't think in any way that Karl-Anthony Towns has really been driving the Knicks' success. Obviously, it's been Brunson. So I think this series is a long one. I think, I mean, it's when I look at the two teams and I look at the talent, I think I like the Knicks' talent better. But after having just been subjected to the Pacers as a team, I think they're annoying. I think they're better defensively than what anybody gave them credit for going into the playoffs. I think they're well suited to be able to pressure Brunson. I don't know. I keep going back and forth in my head
I'm going
as to
Pacers in
whether
7, Mike.
Pacers beat them last year, and I know the Knicks had everybody hurt. I feel like the Pacers are going to wear down the Knicks, and I feel like, well, maybe not the Knicks players, but I think the Knicks fans, same way Cavs fans were probably just thinking we're going to move on. This way that you and I felt playing against the Pacers. I think I'm going to have to agree with you. I think as much as I think the Knicks top their starting five, I think is more talented than Indiana's starting five. I think Indiana just has pieces, parts, things that they can do that are going to eventually wear down the Knicks. And it's going to be a really fun series because it's contrasting styles. And there's definitely things going both ways that the other team can exploit. I feel like the strengths of one team kind of match up with I don't know if the
Yeah.
weaknesses of the other team is necessarily the right way to say it, but it's just an interesting contrast in styles. These two teams don't have necessarily, I guess last year they played in the Eastern Conference semifinals, but they don't have a long history, these two versions of these teams. But certainly if you go back in NBA history, these two teams have played a lot of big playoff series against each other. So even though you wouldn't think Knicks Pacers necessarily as being a rivalry, I do think that there is a rivalry between the fans of these two cities. I think this is going to be a really fun series. Obviously, I wish the Cavs were here, but I think this is a fun Eastern Conference Finals, and I'm going to go Pacers in 7 as well.
All right, there we go. We've said it all in relation to the upcoming playoffs. Mike, I don't know. We didn't talk about this off the air. When do we come back? Maybe we'll see how the games go. Maybe we're going to do a quick gut reactions on Wednesday after the first game, or do we want to try to do one on Friday? I don't know what your schedule is. What do you think?
I would be okay with any of those. I think it's possible that we could come back on for a 15 or 20-minute reaction after each, not after each one, but after
But after like
the
the
game.
round one.
Right. After the game ones have been played, or maybe after the game twos have been played, I think that's probably a good idea just to come back with a quick one and just to kind of get a feel for where these series are at. I think that'd be fun and probably good.
Yeah. Okay. We know 15 to 20 minutes will turn into. Well, we can say it. We go in with the best intentions. So we'll put them on a timer. We'll put each other on a timer, Mike.
Sounds like a plan. Hey, last thing. Did you listen to the Simmons pod?
I did not.
Okay, so I don't want to dive into a whole thing, but there was a potential Cavaliers trade thrown out by
wait. Was it Jeremy Grant, Darius Garland? Was it?
No. No, I don't want to discuss this for hours. I just want your like 15-second reaction to it. So, and I want a yes or no. A straight up trade, Evan Mobley for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Yes or no if you're the Cavs?
Man, I mean, I think if we have Giannis, we win the championship, right?
I think so. I think it's a yes. I mean, I think it's a yes. And if you're Milwaukee, is that a yes?
Probably.
Now you don't get any draft picks to go with it. If you're the Cavs, would you throw something in? Whatever tradable 2031 or whatever we have available.
If
I
I
think
mean,
I
if it
would.
has,
Here's why. Because I think you said it right. It you can look at it. You could say, well, we have a long window. Mobley's 23 and whatever. But we see with Boston or with any of these teams, like 7 different teams have won it in the last 7 years. The windows close really, really fast, despite what you might think. And I think if you trade for Giannis, as you said, I think I think you're the title favorite if you trade for Giannis.
it's not happening. But okay.
You never know, man. You never know. Luka's a Laker, buddy. So you never know. Anyway, let's leave it there. We will
What about this one
probably.
that I also heard, Mike?
Okay, what?
LeBron comes for the league minimum. Are we a title contender? Are we the champion? Are we with LeBron on the current roster? Take Ty Jerome and
I
Sam
just
Merrill
no.
off.
I don't. I just don't think. I don't think the version of LeBron that is right now. I don't think he.
Moves the needle.
I mean, look, he makes you better. I think. The well, if you plug LeBron in and you don't have to give anything up in order to bring LeBron in, then clearly you're better. And again, we won
When
64
you're starting
games.
five would be Donovan
Yeah, no, I get
Mitchell,
I get what your starting
Mo.
five would be. I completely understand. I completely understand. I just I'm more dubious. I'm more dubious of that than
But you don't have to
maybe
give up
Giannis,
Mobley for
who
that.
right. I agree. Look, yeah,
So
it would
if
certainly.
like
I would not. I would not turn it down if LeBron wanted to come back to Cleveland for the veterans minimum. No one would turn it down. Let's put it that way. But I
that
don't
might be
think.
the first time you said anything about welcoming LeBron back, so I'm going to take it. We're going to ride off to the sunset with that,
All
Mike.
right, veterans minimum. LeBron, make it happen. Come back to Cleveland or John Horst in Milwaukee. Give Kobe Altman a call. See what happens. I love Evan Mobley. He's my favorite player on the Cavs. I would hate to see him go, but I think you're 100% right that if Giannis is on this team, if you flip Giannis and Mobley, I think the Cavs.
Because unlike Doc Rivers' offense, we would be running the pick and roll because we already do it.
Yeah,
Kenny
I agree.
Kenny Atkinson the pick and roll with Giannis, Darius Garland, or
Yeah,
come on now.
it would look good. It would look mighty good. It would look mighty, mighty good. All right. Well, there's plenty of time to talk Cavs off season over the next whatever 3 months. So looking forward to these conference finals. As you said, not what anybody expected, not necessarily the matchups that everyone was looking forward to, but I think two very interesting and very entertaining series. Disappointed that the Cavs aren't in there, but that's the way it goes. And you don't get to win a title every year. And in the case of Cleveland sports, you get to win one in 55 years that I've been alive. So anyway, all right, we'll leave it there. Thanks to everyone for listening tonight. Really appreciate it. And we will catch you on our next episode. Thanks.